Well, tonight, the nation's intelligence agencies are warning of cyber threats from Russia and are urging U.S. critical infrastructure defenses to be reinforced.
Homeland Security is warning of a potential troubling escalation in tactics from right-wing extremists.
It wouldn't take much to throw the entire country into darkness.
Specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
What do you mean by semi-fascist?
Fascist, pro-Trump paramilitary groups.
Threats of violence from homegrown extremists are growing in the wake of the insurrectionist attack on the Capitol January 6th.
And we're back. And today we're joined by Keith Graves, our in-house Mad Bomber, Mike, and James from Pilgrim Ammo. Mike, let's get started right away with your conflicted question of the day.
Conflicted question of the day. Due to out-of-control national debt, the government has been forced to cut social welfare benefits. Monthly SNAP and EBT payments have been cut by half. There has been an increase in mob theft and looting, and stores are dangerous for shoppers. Customers are being robbed as they exit stores. What would you do to make sure that your family continues to get food and other items?
Well, just to be clear, you don't have to cut EBT to make that happen. It's already happening. Just saying.
It is the season.
All right, that's too funny. So we'll circle back at the end of the episode like we normally do, and everybody will offer their thoughts on the conflicted question. So let's get back to the topic at hand of white supremacists being the number one threat, especially with regards to taking down our power grid. So we've got another 60 seconds or so of footage to complete what we opened the video with. So we'll watch that first, and then we'll go to work on unpacking it.
The grid is a sprawling target. There are actually 3 in the U.S., the Eastern, Western, and Texas has its own. Should a transformer explode, the system is designed to trigger a localized grid-preserving blackout. But if several sections of the grid go down at the same time, the shutdowns can cascade like dominoes.
There's a very few number of substations you need to take out in the entire United States to knock out the entire grid.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen as a small disturbance in comparison.
Growing concerns over white supremacy in America as President Biden issues this new warning about the threat that it poses.
The most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
This is not going to be the end of MAGA terrorism.
All right, so some pretty strong accusations from various levels of the federal government there and the mainstream media. Keith, since you've spent an entire career in law enforcement, I know that you have some experience with this topic, so take it away.
I was a gang unit supervisor, so our job was to go out and deal with gangs. And whites, when you talk about white supremacy, most of those guys are kind of generally located in gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood, stuff like that. We also do everything from outlaw bikers to you name it. By far, the biggest threat is like the white supremacy movement is so small. Like true white supremacy movement is so tiny. It's infinitesimal compared to all the other gangs and groups that are out there creating mayhem, Norteños, Serranos, Bloods, Crips, MS-13, you name it, right? Those are the people creating havoc, right? But go back to this white supremacist movement. Well, the government comes out and says that white supremacy is fueling this movement, right? It's to the point that they're forgetting everything else. And my friends that are feds, that are in the federal government, they're saying they're getting pushed this narrative down their throat constantly. And it's not the problem that they're seeing at the line level. It's to the point where I myself have been to conferences where Joint Terrorism Task Force commanders are coming in to give the terrorism brief. And it's always been Middle Eastern terrorism and like big threats to where you're sitting there learning something new or confirming something you already know. There has been a ginormous shift since the Biden administration to where it's white supremacy is destroying America. Then they start talking about what white supremacy is. And I'm listening to this going like, well, I'm not seeing it. Let's hear what it is. And they start talking about indicators. The indicators are Gadsden flags, Betsy Ross flags, stuff that we all have. And I'll never forget this one cop just interrupts and just clowns the FBI, holds up his bag, and he's got everything, every morale patch possible that's listed up there. He's like, so I'm a white supremacist. And the JTTF agent was like, what do I say, right? And the entire group, we're talking hundreds of cops, just start clowning the FBI. And I have some of those emblems. I have it because I'm an American and I love America. Right. It's stuff that they're saying is white supremacy that is not. It's just patriotic Americans. It's just everyday people. When you talk about true signs of white supremacy, those are because I've dealt with true white supremacists. Okay. Those people have swastikas. They have HH or 88 for Heil Hitler. They have that kind of stuff on there. And all of us can pretty much agree those people are deplorable. They are not. They're saying the white supremacy is us, like on the screen here, and we're far from, right? And they've lost their mark, and it's to the point now where since the Hamas attacks, now they're backpedaling and saying, "Oh, get ready, we're going to get attacked." Well, yeah, we are going to get attacked because you totally ignored. They came out and said Middle Eastern terrorism is not a threat anymore; it's white supremacy.
Christopher Wray said that not even 2 weeks before 10/7.
This Survival Dispatch video is brought to you by Nutrient Survival. Nourish your body, power your mind.
They are so fixated on people with Gadsden flags that they have forgotten their true mission. And then when you talk about attacks on the power grid, you had 2 yahoos in Idaho, which I'm in Idaho, we're supposed to be ground zero for white supremacy. Man, I don't see it. All those people have been run off. There was like a small compound of them up by Sandpoint, but those people are gone now. In fact, they turned it into a cultural center, like an anti-racism center, which is funny, right? But it was 2 yahoos from Idaho that went up and shot up a power plant. And now it's, oh, look out, the white supremacists are coming. Oh, man, they were 2 mentally ill yahoos that went out with their yeet cannons and decided to shoot up a power thing when they're drunk. When you look at like real attacks, I can't remember the name of the facility, but in San Jose, we had it was a Coyote. I can't remember the name of the station in San Jose, but there was a very large facility off the 101 in San Jose, and somebody shot it up with an AK. Some 7.62 by 39 brass was found. And the predominant theory of who shot that up was Middle Eastern terrorists.
Are you saying that somebody in the People's Socialist Republic of California has an AK?
No, I know.
How is that possible?
They're not supposed to. I know. But and it's funny when people are like, you're from Idaho. There's so much white supremacy there. Well, man, I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. Moved to Idaho to moved back to the United States. And when I go back and look at the Bay Area, there was more like true white supremacy there than there is here in Idaho. And remember, San Francisco is supposed to be tolerant. And it is not. But I don't know where they're coming off saying, here we go. They're saying it's white supremacy. None of the cops are seeing it. None of the cops have seen it at all. Across the board, 100%. The federal agents at the line level, right? The DEA, FBI guys at the line level are not seeing any of this, but they're being fed a narrative by their bosses and they're trying to push it out to the rest of us. And just so everybody feels good about it, the cops are ignoring it. They're clowning. You'll never hear about it because they don't have their First Amendment right. I can speak up because I'm retired and I will get a ton of emails from cops watching this. They'll be like, preach it, brother, keep talking, right? And then they'll give me incidents where they're being fed this narrative and they're getting pissed off. And you'll never hear it from them, but they use people like us to go out and speak for them.
So before we get James and Mike's thoughts on this, just a couple quick comments, then I have a question for you, Keith. So number one, a fish rots from the head down. So Obama and his crew are the ones who are running this current installed administration. And
they admitted that. That's not a theory. That they came out, correct. Obama came out and said that.
Correct. And recently as well, for that matter. So the race wars, race baiting started with Obama. He's working in the background to make that even more pronounced. But for lack of a better term, they're engaging in lawfare, meaning that they've weaponized the criminal justice system against their enemies. You said, well, the guys with the Gadsden flags and the Betsy Ross flag and American flags are proud Americans. They're not terrorists, but they're proud Americans who would never, ever vote for Obama, Biden, or Hillary or anybody like that whatsoever. Nope. They're literally using the system to attack us because they can't beat us fair and square in legitimate elections. So here's my question for you. I know that in the past, you mentioned that you had intercepted known terrorists where you called into ICE and said, hey, I've got this guy, or FBI, whatever. What do you want me to do with him? And we don't have to cover all of that all over again. My question is, how many times, Keith, did you pull somebody over randomly like that and ran their name and they were a white supremacist, a neo-Nazi, something to that effect?
I had a few. I was in an area that would have a lot, but I want to say it would be a handful of times a year, a handful.
How would that compare, say, relatively speaking, to people who are here illegally?
Oh my God, multiple times a day. We're talking like we're pretty much like, depending on what side of the city you work on, every single call. To the point, you have people that are in the country illegally, which is a felony, coming to the police department to report crime, to report that their spouse violated a restraining order, meaning they went to court, they're here illegally, went to court, are getting a divorce, going through proceedings in the judicial system, get court orders. Everybody knows they're here illegally. And then when somebody violates it, they come to the police department to ask for police help. You can't make it up. And we laugh. It's hilarious. And it's just not people from Mexico. We're talking like people from the Middle East, people from Korea, people from Russia, people from, like, you name the country. They're from like everywhere.
You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say you can't make this shit up. But Mike, quick question for you, and then you and James can take it from here. Russia and China are the only countries that can condense a nuclear warhead, put it on an ICBM, and hit us. Is that correct?
Miniaturize a nuclear warhead onto an ICBM. You've got those two. You've got France, England, or France and the UK. The Israelis could technically hit us. God knows why they would. Yeah. Pakistan, India, and everybody on the club could technically hit us. The North Koreans, technically they could, if they could actually get their missiles to fly more than, I don't know, 300 miles.
So but, where I was going with that is these countries that do have nuclear capabilities, and I think you've mentioned in the past that the prospect of dirty bombs coming across the border is more likely than an ICBM. So just for us non-explosive experts, how big of a dirty bomb would be required to blow up your average substation?
Well, the problem is a dirty bomb is it's just a misnomer. Literally, it's what we call an RDD, a radiation dispersal device. Okay. Right? It's a weapon of terror. It's a V1 buzz bomb. That's all it is. It's a very small effect, right? All I'm going to do is I'm going to take some explosives. I'm going to pack a whole bunch of like medical grade radioactive material around it, and then I'm going to disperse it. Okay. That's it. That's a dirty bomb.
Mike, what about stuff in the United States? Couldn't they just use stuff that's stationary, use conventional explosives?
Absolutely.
And then use some nuclear, like not necessarily nuclear reactor, but just there's all sorts of little tiny nuclear devices around that they could blow up.
There's hospitals and stuff all over the place that have got nuclear material just lying about, but it's just that all you're doing is contaminating an area, right? It's a weapon of terror. There's virtually no effect to the damn thing. There really is. An RDD is really, honestly, it's a misnomer. It is a weapon of terror. It is all. Okay. It's kind of like those holes that are this big from an AR-15.
Yes.
Yeah, sinking a battleship with your AR-15, crap like that. Now, if they want to hit stuff, fine. There's plenty of explosives out there, right? Everybody's already figured out. God, the Ukrainians figured it out. The Syrians figured out how to put explosives onto a drone. Okay, you don't even have to be there. Or if you're the drone rednecks, walk up to one of those substations, chuck a bunch of Molotovs over. It does not have to be high tech, kids. Well, it really doesn't.
That's why, James, I got a question for you. So we average. For the past few decades, we've averaged 21 physical attacks per year on substations. And the most common form of an attack, so to speak, is to shoot up the transformer buckets that are full of mineral oil to cool the coils. So once they get shot up, mineral oil drains out and the system melts down. That's 1/8 of an inch mild steel typically for those buckets. From a firearms perspective, because it's not uncommon. It happened almost a year ago to the day in Moore County, North Carolina, where somebody shot up a bunch of transformers. What do you need ammunition-wise to penetrate 1/8 of an inch?
You don't need a lot to penetrate that. When it comes down to the ammo side of things, green tip would do it. Okay, heavier calibers would do it. This sort of stuff, you're not going to stop if people want to do it. It doesn't take much to penetrate that. When you're talking 1/8 of an inch, it's not much.
That's kind of where I was going. Like, would your 9mm granted it's plus P, it's 2,000 feet per second. Would that penetrate an eighth of an inch of mild steel? Okay. That's kind of where I was going with it. So even like even a handgun round could take down one of these substations pretty quickly.
Oh, hell.
Not in California, though, because they've outlawed that stuff. So
yeah,
there's no
Prop 65 certified, though, so they can use our stuff in California if they want. Okay.
Yeah, but they're weapons of death.
I know, but we're Prop 65 certified for California. So if they want to use our stuff, well, no, we get taken down if I finish that comment. So it doesn't take much to take out an eighth of an inch.
Right.
It doesn't take much. It doesn't take a lot of load. It's just if people want to do it. And the purposes of the whole conversation is white Americans or average white people in this country are the threat. It's just a nonsense.
I kind of, my take on it is that if the four of us, for example, represent what Obama deems as like the number one threat to America, I don't think so. Because if we were the problem, I think people would know it, because there's a whole bunch of us that are patriotic. They would know it.
So, Chris, you bring up a good point. We talked a little bit about this offline, but in 2020, BLM was just lighting fires everywhere, right? That's what nobody talks about. That was the true insurrection. When all that started, they tried to start that in Boise, Idaho. And when word came that they were coming, I want to say about 150 BLM supporters showed up to Boise. 3,000 patriots showed up. They were patrolling. I remember seeing a guy drive by, doors off a Ram pickup. Everybody's kitted up. AR slung, and they had a freaking 50 cal in the back. It was like a technical, and there was nothing but regular people. And when I looked around, I know what a white supremacist looks like. Okay. These were people like you and I that were fed up, that were just coming to protect their city, to make sure it didn't get burned, like Salt Lake, San Francisco, New York, you name it, right? The next day in the paper, they talked about how 3,000 white supremacists. And look, man, I know what a white supremacist is. I investigated those people. I investigated all gangs. That was not this. This was regular, everyday people.
Did you hear what Grady said?
They were just fed up.
You heard what Grady said when BLM said that they were going to go to Polk County? He said, come on, I'll deputize the whole county. Okay,
I love Grady.
Everybody here is armed. I recommend that they carry guns. And I got a letter from Grady the other day. On his birthday, I sent him about 500 rounds of our stuff just because I like his shit. But he said, yeah, BLM, come on down. Okay, it's going to be a lot of a mess to clean up, but please come.
So Sheriff Grady, for those who don't know, is the sheriff of Polk County, Florida.
Love him.
I've trained Polk County cops or deputies, and I ask them, hey, what's your boss really like? And you'll hear from cops if they don't like their guy. And most of them across the board are like, oh, he's an asshole. He's not what he really seems like. And there's a very famous Wisconsin guy that you see on TV all the time, and everybody hated working for him. Polk County Sheriff Grady, not one guy has said they all love him. And looking at his press releases or his press conference, I want to work for that guy right now. I'd come back to law enforcement to work for that guy. And that's saying a lot, because I don't want to go back.
He's got a great sense of humor. We have some mutual friends that went to school with Sheriff Grady and grew up with him. And he is, whether he's in front of the camera or not, they've told us he's same dry sense of humor. He's just a comical guy, but definitely an American hero sheriff. Mike, so we've discussed sleeper cells frequently over the past couple months since 10/7 happened in Israel, but I know that you did some deeper research on these attacks on our power grid. Can you tell us what you discovered?
Well, what I can say is that white supremacists are not the problem, historically speaking. As a matter of fact, white males are not the problem. As a matter of fact, it turns out human beings are not the problem. Really? What it turns out to be is that great conspiracy of the squirrel. Yep. That's it. Squirrels have gotten together, and they are attacking the U.S. power grid directly. It is a coordinated assault across the nation. Wish we had this for Canada, because I'm sure that they're attacking in Canada too. They're probably in a league with the moose.
So are these like Islamic squirrels by chance?
I did not check their religious beliefs, but these are the same ones. These are the same ones that tried to kill Morty. Right? Morty and his grandpa. You don't mess with the squirrels, man. They're the ones that are running everything. You don't mess with squirrels, Morty.
So, Mike, I got a question.
Yes.
Why is there a crossover Idaho? Are you trying to subliminally tell people something?
I'm telling you, Idaho is the center of their attack. That's where the brains are of the whole. I can't even.
Jesus.
It's too ludicrous. But I'm just saying, there's more attacks by squirrels than there are human beings. Now they are all suicide attacks, so there may be a problem there.
Yeah, those could be those Hezbollah squirrels that we
Shahida squirrels. Yeah.
All joking aside, when I first saw this, the thing that stood out to me first and foremost is number one, the average 20-year-old male today has the same testosterone level that a 70-year-old male had 20 years ago. And our food supply has been poisoned. People are consuming massive amounts of soy that destroys your testosterone. Being a soy boy is a real thing. It's not just a meme and it's not just a joke. But the Washington Post, obviously hardcore left-wing news organization owned by Jeff Bezos. I crack up when I see these liberals on the left use words like terrifying. These squirrels are absolutely terrifying.
I was terrified.
Well, that's different. You've done battle with the squirrels before. So
I'm telling you, the piney Kong, they're something, man. They're a force to be reckoned with.
If you really want to take care of the squirrel epidemic of destroying our power system, just get people like us armed with 22s and go grab some beers and go hang out at the power station for a day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good time right there.
I'll do it for free. It won't cost a thing.
You provide the beer and the ammo, dude. I'm in.
All we need is a portable stove, and we can have squirrel sandwiches. Good times.
I like.
That's a little too far, man.
Nah, squirrel tastes good, man. Gross. You're using the wrong recipe, man. You got to come to the South. Squirrel and gravy.
Too much. These dang squirrels.
Okay, it's the piney Kong.
So moving beyond physical attacks on our infrastructure. Obviously, hacking is a concern, cyber attacks. There's some pretty pronounced players who hate us that attack us on a regular basis. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. I can say that I actually attended a Proud Boys event in Georgia, and they were a bunch of good old boys. Their goal really was to protect people and businesses against Antifa and BLM. And I'm not saying that many of them were not intelligent, because they were, but these are not sophisticated hackers who are hacking our power grid and our water treatment plants and taking it down. It's really not that complex. It's really these either terrorist countries or countries that sponsor terrorism that are promoting these network attacks. And it wouldn't take much. So I'm going to put up another graphic, actually, while we're on this discussion of our three power grids. Not everybody's aware of this. So we have an east and a west power grid, and Texas has its own power grid. And there are contingencies to connect the grids when power needs to be sent from one region to another. There was a shortage of electricity in California a couple of years ago. Texas connected to the western grid, sent some power that direction. When it was over, they shut it back down again. But this map here also shows things like transmission lines that handle upwards of 765,000 volts. They're typically the longer range transmission lines. If hackers break into substations in our networks and were to redirect electricity to portions of the grid that are not capable of handling that type of voltage, because if you look in the legend in the bottom corner, they go down as far as 345 in this diagram, but in reality, there's 200,000 voltage power lines. And if you jam 600,000+ volts or 700,000+ volts through transmission lines that were made for 200,000 volts, you're going to do some serious permanent damage and melt a whole lot of stuff down. So I guess just from a cyber attack perspective, a logical network attack, it's not a bunch of good old boys that are going to attack this stuff. It's much more sophisticated, and it's the same players that we've seen over and over again that, Keith, you just mentioned, that the feds have taken their eye off the ball and they want to blame white supremacy, when in reality, it's groups like Iran and groups that Iran has sponsored. So just wanted to draw a little bit of clarification as far as that's concerned.
I can definitely throw something in there about foreign hackers. So my cybersecurity guy, he was actually part of the offensive a couple of years ago when things in Ukraine first kicked up and all the cyber gangs from Russia were doing their thing. Let me tell you something. Now that I have some perspective from him as to what these guys are like, those guys were crushed in short order. We've got a massive cybersecurity infrastructure in the US, and it is more offensive than it is defensive. And let me tell you something. It got to the point a couple of weeks in where all the cyber gangs were turning on each other and doing everything that they could to dime out the other guys so that they wouldn't get all their servers fried. I was actually afraid of that kind of stuff until he gave me the real story about what's going on with that. I don't worry about them much anymore. Also, a lot of the actual controls for a lot of infrastructure, and this came out when they started networking all kinds of stuff, they're not allowed to have the actual physical controls for a lot of this stuff hooked into a network system.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be standalone. It cannot be attacked from the outside. What can be attacked from the outside is all the administrative and all the other ancillary stuff in there. It's very difficult for somebody to come in from the outside and shut things down. Somebody's going to wind up having to give them a door in.
I just spoke to a friend of Don Mann's who was a CIA agent for 30 years, just retired recently. And
of which none of us are. Don't anybody call us that anymore.
Correct. So he made an interesting comment on this because we were discussing this exact topic, and not just with regards to power stations, but also water treatment plants. And the fact of the matter is there's lots of regulations in place in certain states and areas where you can't connect everything, or you're not supposed to connect things to the network, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. There's a lot of people doing it. They're taking shortcuts. You've got somebody in a management position demands that they have a dashboard showing them what's going on in a facility. Now
that's those back doors.
Correct. Now it gets connected to the network and now it's vulnerable. But 2 weeks ago, we got hit with an X3 CME. And it was 2 weeks ago on Monday, of coronal mass ejection from the sun. And I was having problems that day. I couldn't get anything to upload to YouTube, and my phone was dropping calls until I finally went and did some research. The ironic part is that the propagandists inside of our government used that as an opportunity to say that there was a cooperative group of Chinese and Iranian hackers who had hacked a water treatment plant in Hawaii, a port in California, an oil transmission line in Texas, and on and on and on. And coming from the world of high tech, I was for many years a certified network and system admin in the Sun Microsystems and Oracle world. That's not how the bad guys work. The bad guys don't just go and start randomly attacking things like that. When they're ready to flick the switch on an attack, they want to make a big impact, and they're not going to do something like that. So it was just kind of ironic. It seemed to me that they were blaming the CME on this boogeyman, the Iranian and Chinese hackers.
Well, there was a CME because we didn't pay enough taxes.
Is that what caused it?
Those hacks, they're called 0 days. And our government, I was going to back up what Mike says, that I have also had conversation with guys whose primary job is both offensive and defensive hacking for us. And they both basically said, look, Russia and China can go all the way into our grid. We know that they can go all the way in and do whatever they want, but they don't do it because they know we can do far worse to them. And they talked about 0 days. Like we have basically a slate of 0 days where we can shut whatever country we want down. And then once the 0 day gets found out, that's when you get the update that says, hey, update your phone because there's a vulnerability. It's called a 0 day. They found out about it and they shut it down. As soon as that gets shut down, there's either another one already in a backup, or there's government scientists whose only job is to come up with a new 0 day, and they're hacking in and they're holding on to that. And that's all they do.
So are these hackers like white supremacist hackers?
Honest.
I mean, I'm
I'm
just trying to keep us on top.
No. It's funny.
Those guys still have flip phones.
So what's funny is I do have friends in the power industry. I talk to the guys that are working in the power industry, and I don't want to burn them. So there are many different power companies in the United States. Some of them are very woke and have bought into this whole wokeism theory. And it's to the point where when they do exercises where they do get hacked and everything is shut down, when they start the restart for everything, it takes up to a week to restart the entire system. So it's going to take a week for everything to start back up. That's when everybody is sitting at their console and they start flipping switches. There are people there that are saying that's not going to happen. Guys have to actually get to certain sites, and we know that if it's going to be down for a week, cops know what's going to happen. Like, just look at what happened with Katrina. Okay, there's going to be and how many of those power company and some of these power company employees in this field are saying, hey, how many people are not going to show up to work because they're taking care of their families? This week is going to turn into 2 weeks, turn into a month. And when I've asked to pin them down, how long is the restart going to take in real life? Their comment every time is, we don't know, because they won't do it realistically. As far as like people won't show up for work, we're doing it in the middle of the night. It's not realistic that we start in the middle of the day when everybody's sitting at their desk ready to deploy. And what about the guys that have to drive? They don't have a full tank of gas and can't drive out to the middle of nowhere to flip a switch. And now they can't fuel up because you can't get gas.
That's the routine we face here in Florida every year during hurricane season. As the hurricanes approach, the semis stop bringing gas in because the companies don't want their trucks being stranded here and caught in a major storm. Everybody empties what fuel there is, especially people beachside. You can't get gas beachside to save your life. And then after the event happens, it takes a couple days to get semis to come back in and fill tanks up, and fuel's a serious issue in those cases.
No, but again, go back to this whole white supremacy thing. It's the big boogeyman that the left is throwing out. By their definition, a white supremacist is anybody that doesn't agree with the right. Like, straight up, seriously. Like, if you look at a plain man's
doesn't agree with the left
definition, doesn't agree with the left, right? They're saying a blue line flag. They're saying this to cops. Blue line flag is a sign of white supremacy.
Right.
And we're all looking at each other like, you have got to be kidding me, right? That's why they're making cops take it off their cars, off their uniform, off whatever. Like, even in Boise, Idaho, the chief came out and said, you can't have a blue line flag in the station. And they had this beautiful table that you take a break at. And it literally, the table is this nice wood table that's a blue line flag. Somebody spent a lot of time putting it together, and they got rid of it.
Well, again, a fish
because that's a sign of white supremacy.
Well, they were doing the same thing with the military a few years back as well. They were saying, okay, there's all these people in the military that have all these white supremacist tattoos. One of those tattoos was a skull. Well, crap. The entire special operations community has got a skull tattooed on them somewhere, usually from their first crew.
It's covering up my tattoos.
Hey, Mike, so the military went in and investigated white supremacy in the Army. How many white supremacists came out of the Army?
Very few.
Wasn't it? I thought it was like out of 500,000.
Yeah.
Like, they went on a rant to just root out as many people as they could.
And those were guys that they already knew were white supremacists, and they pinned a tail on them so they could watch them.
White supremacists.
I was just going to say, we're back to the fish rots from the head down. This is the demonization of political foes is all it boils down to. So the left team.
You're saying I don't need to surrender my copy of Mein Kampf?
It's for research purposes. Why would you?
Yeah, well,
it's a cautionary tale at this point. Yeah, so look at it and go, dude, that guy's head's messed up.
You can keep that book, but To Kill a Mockingbird, you got to hand that in. You can't have that.
Oh, come on, mate.
You have to burn. You have to burn.
Wait a minute. Why is that one bad?
I don't know.
I haven't heard that one yet.
There's some historical stuff. There's some.
Yeah, there's
the same way the adventures of Huck Finn.
Removed
from the same press release.
Hey, James, I got a question for you, just because you're very traveled around the world. When you look at terrorist attacks outside of America, in all the places that you've been, whether it be Middle East, Asia, so on and forth, who's doing the attacking? I know it's not white guys, but who's doing the attacking? Like, when you've been in those areas, is there? Can you break it down into, say, a demographic or a political leaning or a religious leaning or anything like that?
It's varied. Okay. When I was in Uganda, doing what I was doing there, the hotel that I ended up staying in was literally 2 doors down from the bar that blew up. Same too with the one in Kenya. And it's all seeming to be from me personally. I've been to mosques and things like that, and people are friendly. I've been to a lot of them all over the world, only because I'm just interested in history and perspectives and shit like that. And there's a very small segment of very fucking disturbed pieces that are taking segments of what is being written taking it totally out of perspective and using it to empower or change the minds of people who are mentally weak, okay, and then putting them to work. Okay, and unfortunately, mate, with that, you guys know where I'm going with this. It's a very, very specific group of people, and it's a very, very specific religion. You don't see Buddhists going along and getting weak-minded people to go and do stupid shit. It's weak-minded people that get led in a direction because they're weak-minded. We're going back to white supremacy, mate. We've got that in Australia. It's in UK. It's in Ireland. It's right across Eastern Europe. Most of the time when people head in that direction, it's because they're in areas where there's other people and they're trying to get the shit kicked out of them by a particular group. It's a reactionary force. So right across Africa, Middle East, places that I've been in Europe, let's just say all of the faces that we see on the screen at the moment, fucking not us, all right? And it's people like us that usually get to a point where we're just tired of lying down and tired of being nice people, and we just start defending our own.
It's human nature. If you push somebody and you keep pushing somebody, eventually they will push back. It's just human nature. I will add one thing to your comment, James, with regards to the frequency and the volume of terrorist activity. If you go to the Religion of Peace, the website, the religionofpeace.com, the guy who runs that website for 20 plus years has documented virtually every single terrorist activity that's happened in the world. And there's a very common theme there, and I'll leave it to our viewers to go check it out themselves, but it backs up exactly what you're saying.
Look, and when things were hot here, I got surrounded by a group of these guys and asking me, do I think Black Lives Matter? And I was literally sitting on my bike, just let this thing go past me, just on my phone, was asking, do I think Black Lives Matter? I think, mate, all lives matter. And they started to get up on my grill. And when I put the kickstand down, one of the old guys he was part of it, but not part of it. And I got the impression that he was a coordinator. And when he got the picture that things were going to kick off, and I wasn't intimidated by these half a dozen spineless dickheads, he came over, heard my accent, and said, guys, he's the wrong white guy. You need to go and basically saying, pick us off the target. Okay, that is going to be a problem. And he said, I'm sorry, I know you're not from this country. This is not your problem. I'm just, I think this is everyone's fucking problem, dude. Because what you're saying is wrong. All lives matter. You just didn't want your people to get hurt. And they were little Play-Doh people that don't shave yet, skinny jeans.
So it's funny. Like when you go to a protest that's going to turn into a riot, you can see it starting to turn. That's the first thing that happens is they start, are you with us or are you against us? Sounds very brown shirt kind of. Like
very
familiar, right?
Very much.
And we stand there as cops, we're standing on the line and we're kicking off, man. It always starts off with, where are you from? Right? Like you're going to get robbed when a gang member comes up and goes, where are you from? And I've had cops that start drawing their gun because they know, like, I'm about to get robbed. Where are you from? Yep. Oh shit. When they come out. And then I had one friend down, he's an LA County cop. He said he left a party, came out, guy goes, where are you from? He started drawing his gun as the other bad guy was pulling his gun. He just zippered the guy, right? But it's a common thing that, where are you from? Who do you align with? I don't see people like us asking those questions, right?
We generally don't care.
Working in plain clothes, working undercover, working these riots, working all this stuff. The only time I see that question getting asked, basically, who do you align with, is always the left. It's always, I'll let you figure out the rest, right? But it's at these Antifa, BLM, BAM, which is by all means necessary, like all those types of protests. And you can go figure out the correlating factor, right? But according, I'm a white supremacist for even saying that.
Yeah, shame on you. So does anybody have anything else they want to add on the potential attacks on our power grid? Or are we ready for Mike's conflicted question? I'd say you're on, Mike. So you want to read your question again?
Sure. By the way, our high overlord Cthulhu says that no lives, may he devour you first. Again, due to out of control national debt, the government has been forced to cut social welfare benefits. Monthly SNAP and EBT payments have been cut by half. There has been an increase in mob theft and looting, and stores are dangerous for shoppers. Customers are being robbed as they exit stores. What would you do to make sure that your family continues to get food, and other items that they need. Pop quiz, Hotshot. What do you
Who
do?
wants to go first? I'll go first.
Oh, go ahead.
My answer is really simple. I would just buy all of our groceries from Amazon Fresh or Publix in their delivery and not even go to the dang store. Just have the groceries delivered to my door. End of problem. That's my simple answer to the question.
It is a solution, but it goes back to everything that we say on everything that we're on. Just be prepared, arm yourself, because I say yes to life. So if I want to go to the grocery store, I'm going to go. Now, granted, I don't think anybody's going to come up to me and try and rob me when I leave a grocery store. But wasn't it one of Trump's campaign things that if he's re-elected into his presidency, that all these looters are just going to be shot? Isn't that going to take care of things on a lot of different levels? Oxygen is not going to be wasted. Ammo supplies are going to be sort of more in demand. Takes care of a lot of problems.
That stimulates the economy.
Exactly.
Well, all you have to do is look at the talking heads on these left-wing shows, and they're predicting that Trump is like Hitler.
Well, he got too good at taking off the ballot in Colorado yesterday. Did you guys see that?
We did. SCOTUS is going to overturn that. He hasn't been convicted of anything. You can't say he's guilty of an insurrection that had no guns and hasn't been charged or convicted.
The true insurrection happened before Jan 6.
All right, let's stay on task here, guys.
All right.
Let's stay on task.
All right, so for me, this is the same advice I've been giving to all my friends in California where this is happening right now. They're not cutting benefits. They're actually giving more benefits to these people, but they're still going crazy and stealing everything in sight, right? And robbing people. So the same thing I tell everybody, all my friends that are still stuck behind enemy lines. Number one, if you're able to carry, then make sure you have something with you. Okay. I always end my videos with, remember your ABCs, always be carrying. You need to be packing. So before we even get to the food portion, you have to worry about you getting robbed. Everybody should have a primary and a secondary weapon, meaning a rifle and a pistol. You got to have 2,000 rounds for that rifle. You got to have 1,000 rounds for that pistol. And we're not talking like green tip, ball. We're talking like self-defense ammo. Okay. Not to pimp out JW's company, but like that's what you're going to need. Okay.
PilgrimAmmunition.com. Go buy your 2,000 rounds of rifle ammo and your 1,000 rounds of handgun ammo. There you go. Shameless plug.
Link below.
You need to think about less lethal because not everything you're going to shoot your way out of. What I keep, and I've talked about this before, I keep bear spray in my vehicle because it's a big ass can full of the same stuff that's in the little can. And it goes farther and spreads out a little bit more so you can take out more people. So you should think about your less lethal. And then that'll take care of you if you have to actually go to the store, right? Next up is the same thing that everybody should have. You should have your food, not the 3 days of food the government says. You're going to need at the bare bones minimum 6 months of food. And then if something like this happens, that can actually stretch out because you still can get deliveries like what Chris talked about and stuff like that. But you're going to want a bare minimum of 6 months. I've got more, but you should have something. And I think that would take care of you very well. Just know that in certain states, this is already occurring. And if you, like me, I moved back to the United States. Now I live here. If you're in a position to move, you should really think about moving like last year, actually in 2019, even before that. You need to think about moving because it is going to pop off next year. It's going to make 2020 look like nothing. Wait till January of 25 and watch the riots that are going to come out then. We are already seeing it. The left is already talking about it. Antifa, BAM, all those people are already talking about what they're going to do. These Hamas protests that we have right now, those are the warm-up. They're doing after action reports. I've never seen them do that before. Okay. They're doing AARs to figure out what worked and what didn't work, and they are revamping, and you can see them changing. I remember when Antifa first came, they started in Berkeley, and I remember being at a riot, and I remember talking to the person on my right saying, it looks like they're trying to change things up here than we've never seen before. And they were saying, we're Antifa, Black Bloc came out. We're like, this is not like something we've seen before. And we can see the change. And then next thing you know, look what happened, right? They're doing it again. This card, not to go too off the mark, but the card that you just read, we already see it happening. But it's not too late to prepare, but you should have been preparing already. Mm-hmm. So now's the time. We told you, your 6 months of food, 2,000 rounds primary, 1,000 rounds secondary, less lethal. Go buy your bear spray, order on Amazon, have it delivered to your house. Buy the big can, leave it in your car. And then when they come up to your car, like when you're talking about being on your motorcycle, not really a deadly force threat yet. It can be very simply, but to just pull it out when you see it's ready to pop off, Can't fight me if you can't see me.
I've got wasps. I've got a big can of wasp spray in my swing bag.
So you had to mention wasp spray. So Don Mann he's worked with some of his neighbors. He lives in the mountains, and he had counseled them to have wasp spray if they didn't have a gun handy. And we had keyboard commandos coming out of the woodwork saying that it is a federal offense to use wasp spray on somebody else. Keith's addressed it before.
Show me.
It's just ironic that you would say that. But at the end of the day, if you have stand your ground laws or solid castle doctrine laws, it doesn't matter if it's wasp spray or anything else. Your life's in danger. You can do what needs to be done to protect yourself. But
there's a lot of wasps in Florida. And if I see a wasp, I'm going to keep it away from me. Now, if people get in between me and the wasp.
So are you speaking in like code language now? Are you talking white Anglo-Saxon Protestants? Are we back to the white supremacy thing here?
There was a wasp on his face. I was trying to help that poor guy. I didn't want him to get stung. Oh, man, that's what we get for acting altruistically.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyway.
All right, Mike.
I'm glad you said that, because I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was illegal.
It's not. It's not.
I was wrong with it, dude.
It's illegal? Show me which statute's been broken.
Right. That's Keith's whole thing. Show me the criminal code.
Yeah.
I get that on every video I do. You said that they should do this and that's illegal. Interesting. I didn't know that. What's the section? And nobody can find it. I can't find it. Can you?
Have any of you ever been hit with wasp spray?
Yes.
I've been hit. I actually, when I got it, I was just like, I've been gassed and shit like that. But I told my mate at the time, I said, just hit me with that. Fuck me.
Do you hold a lighter in front of it when you do it?
I didn't ask him to do that, but
hey, did you guys see the new toy that Exothermic sent us? Did I send you the picture of this, Keith, mounted to the bottom?
That's awesome. Yeah, I got that.
Cerakoted shotgun with the American flag on it. I call it catch and cook. You pull the trigger once you shoot it, and then you cook it, and you're good to go.
It's a technique.
Catch and cook. That's all there is to it.
Catch and cook.
I need that to melt the snow off my driveway.
So I met with the owners of that company, and they said they actually have people who buy these for that purpose specifically. They don't want to.
I just want to be the cool kid on the block.
95% of their sales is that. 95. I asked them, I said, so what do your customer segments look like? They said 95% of our customers buy these because they can, and they're proud Americans. End of story. He said that's all there is to it. The other 5% is people clearing snow and people doing controlled burns like Department of Natural Resources and stuff like that.
All right. So, little known fact, Mike and I were in the same battalion way back in 1987, 88.
Way back.
Okay. He's in one company.
Same barber for the past 40 years.
Right. When I became a combat engineer and I come out, I was told combat engineers have flamethrowers. Ever since being a little kid, I wanted to have a flamethrower. I wanted to shoot that thing. And I was like, hell, I went to the unit. And when I went to go draw my M16 for the first time, I'm like, do we have a flamethrower? Legit, the guy says, we turned it in 2 years ago. You just missed it. Damn it. And I want one in the worst, like a legit flamethrower. Yep. I missed it by 2 years, Mike. I just born 2 years too late, man.
It's okay. That was the best part about being an EOD tech, man. I had access to all kinds of stupid stuff that was sitting in warehouses, and they'd be like, "Hey, we got to get rid of all this ammunition." Cool. So I got to shoot a whole bunch of rounds out of the old M202 Flash 4-pack launcher. Yeah, that was a good time. Titanium tetrachloride on fire.
We'd have people turn in, like Uncle Johnny would die, and Uncle Johnny was in World War II. And the family hates guns and would come in to turn it into us. We would never destroy the good stuff, from BARs to Thompsons to MP40s, MP44, right? And we would get that stuff all the time. And I made a special section that was straight up range familiarization day. And we would bring all that, write a court order to keep it, not to be destroyed. Bring that on out to a range day, so all the cops, because cops aren't gun people, so everybody can learn how they work, how to take it apart. Just somebody turned in John Wayne Winchester 94s with matching serial numbers, meaning like one serial number off, and they were going to destroy it. I got in there, wrote a court order to keep it for training, and then we mounted them. They're sitting up in a conference room now. You're like in California, by the way. I don't know if they're still there, but good times, man.
That's awesome. Mike, you're batting cleanup. Do you want to answer your conflicted question?
The only thing that I have to do is I have to quote George Washington when I say stay strapped or get clapped. And if you're gonna, I don't need to go grocery shopping. It was the same way when things kicked off with COVID. My missus and I we're walking around. The Sam's Club is on fire around us. People are freaking out and stuff. We're like, oh, look, a charcuterie board. Oh, and 19 bottles of wine. We'll need that. But already have your preps in advance. But I live out in the country. Why am I going to go to the city to do any shopping there? I'm out here, significantly lower chance out here going to my small town grocery store, right? And the only thing that I'm going to wind up getting is produce anyway. That's about it. And that's if it's the winter time. I'm going to be growing stuff here in my garden. But if you do got to go, right? If you do got to go in teams, right? One person shopping, one person dedicated security, right? Everybody packing. And if you can put a third person out in the car to watch the car to make sure that the car doesn't disappear in the process, armed with a long gun, do so. Doesn't have to be very overt. You don't got to make a mess out of it. You don't got to get crazy. Be nice and kind and wonderful to everybody around you until you're not in a situation where you need to be.
I want to tack on to what you're saying about bringing a long gun and stuff like that. Bring one that you don't mind losing to evidence. So my pistol I carry a Glock, easily replaced, not worried about that. Because when you shoot somebody, if the cops show up, if it's one of those scenarios where the cops would actually show up, it's not into the world quite yet. Your gun's going to get taken as evidence because it is a homicide. So no matter what, it's going to get taken until court's done. I have a Knight's Armament. That's my primary end of the world gun. But that's also a $5,000 system that I'm running. I am not going to lose that. I am not. I love that gun, but I am not going to lose my CAC to evidence. So I literally have my old school 2000s Mark 18 because I know it works. And that's the one that I know I can lay down some fire. I know I can handle any problem. I can go long, short, whatever I need to do. But if it goes to evidence, I ain't going to shed a tear in it. I can easily replace it with another Mark. I got the updated Mark 18 with the 11-inch barrel that I can replace it with. So just something to think about that you just want to prepare for.
Well, I've got a Mark 18 as well. In the worst case scenario, if you run out of ammo, you could always hit somebody over the head with that quad rail that weighs 25 fucking pounds.
It's a heavy beast, man.
For an SBR, it sure is.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, they want their carbine back.
And I know people don't have a lot of money to spend on that kind of stuff. Palmetto State Armory has upped their game a little bit. They are a little bit better than they used to be. You can get their dagger, which we did a cheap pistol test on that. It's just the Glock 19 internal. It's a Glock 19 all through and through. Yep. And then you can get an AR in a package for like $550, $600. Yep. You got to give it to them for spreading freedom at that kind of a price, right? So it's not like these shootings that Mike is talking about. These things are going to be done in a couple of rounds. You're not going to go through a mag. Okay, we're talking like that. Usually it's about 8 rounds and you're done, if that. And if you're going to lose it to evidence, I'd rather have my $550 package go into evidence, my good stuff. And people don't think about, preppers don't tend to think about that stuff.
Yeah, good advice, Keith.
That's good advice.
100%. All right, guys. I appreciate all y'all's time. Thank you for educating our audience on the dangers of these middle-aged white supremacists hiding around every corner. And the squirrels.
The squirrels.
The white
I'm telling you,
squirrels.
You don't mess with squirrels, Morty.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, guys. Happy hunting for nuts this weekend.
Why are you making me do this for you again?
Who doesn't wish they could talk to animals, Rick?
Most humans. There, I'm done. Just stay out of trouble.
Gotta keep moving, can't stop, up, down, up, down, up, stop, down.
The queen needs food. The babies need food. The queen makes babies.
The situation in Argentina has proven less convenient than predicted.
Yeah, we'll have to re-destabilize their economy, refocus labor class outrage from upper to middle, foster a coup, and install a compliant regime.
Same as Guatemala?
Yes, but you can double-time it.
We need a quorum to pick a new pope in case the Exxon Monsanto thing falls through in Africa.
Why not use chemtrails? Put a canopy on Uganda. They're set to agitate any What?
That kid is watching us.
So, we're squirrels. He's a kid.
He's watching us like he hears what we're saying. Hey, kid. Young man. Come here, little boy. Tell Daphne to run a 199 on a possible Doolittle. Little boy, we'll give you wishes if you can hear us. We can make you fly and get candy.
Oh, fuck! Oh, fuck! Fuck me! Fuck me!
Shit, Morty, what did you do. All right, Morty, pack your shit. That's only gonna keep him down for a little bit, Morty. You fucked with squirrels, Morty. We got a good 5 minutes before they're backing up on our ass, Morty. We have to pack up and move to a new reality, Morty. You know, I said we can only do that a couple of times. We're fucked over here because of these damn squirrels, Morty.